Welcome to the Rat Nest Podcast, episode number 24? 25.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. With Chris Sperandio,
Hey!
a.k.a. Pinko Joe.
Hey!
Did I pronounce it right? Did I remember it correctly?
No, you butchered it. That's all
Sperandio.
right, though. Nobody gives a fuck. It's fine.
Damn it.
Way
It's
to
spelled
go.
the way I said it.
Way to go, bro.
It's Italian. Italian is easy because all the continents are always said the same way.
Yeah. Go on.
Unlike in English.
True. English has the most stupid fucked up rules that don't make any sense. In all
It's a
aspects.
funny thing. I thought of when people that are not English speakers land in Newark and then they want to go to New York, they can't really tell the difference between Newark and New York. It's a really fucked up language.
Oh, absolutely.
And also rename your goddamn city.
Yeah. There's no need to confuse the tourists like that.
Add a senior, a junior, a second, a Mr., a Mrs., something. Make it theirs.
Yeah. Oh man, that's great. So how you been, man? Things are good for you? Things are looking up?
Well, I'm with Texas Governor Greg Abbott. I'm never out of material.
Yeah. he's offering a lot right now.
He is he's a horn of plenty
Yeah.
when it comes to fucked up political decisions.
He definitely takes a stance in one certain direction, doesn't he?
No pun intended.
Yeah. You can use that one if you
I
want.
shouldn't laugh. It's not right to laugh, but I hate that guy. I really do hate that guy. I think I hate him more than Trump because he's not as flamboyant as Trump, right? He doesn't engender the same sort of lampooning that Trump engenders, but his policies are just as terrible, if not worse.
Well, being in the heart of it, where you're in Houston, right? So that's a mixed city of a lot of different pockets and political thought. It's not maybe as red as the rest of Texas, but what do you see firsthand with everything that's going on?
Well, I haven't seen somebody brandishing a firearm yet, right? That's one of the new laws. That's maybe the most innocuous of the new laws.
Yeah,
you don't need to have.
And it's 18 years old, right? Is it 18?
I think 21.
Is it 21? Okay.
But
slightly
how many
better.
stupid 21-year-olds do you know? A lot, right?
Dude, I feel like I'm still as smart as I was when I was 21 10 years later. It's crazy. You don't learn anything in your 20s. You definitely don't know how to carry a weapon with no regard. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Joe? It's crazy, right?
I personally don't have a problem with firearms as long as there is training involved. I grew up when I was 10, 11 years old. My dad took me to hunter safety courses and I learned to respect firearms and I still have a very strong respect for them. I own guns and I like to go target shooting and all of that. So I have no problem with open carry because I would be happy to do that. However, when there is a lack of education and there is almost a stance that I get to do this no matter how educated or uneducated I am towards firearms, that's where I have a problem. There needs to be, like I took as a kid, a hunter safety course, that should be mandatory before you're allowed to go and carry a firearm. And I'm sure people are going to hate that I'm saying that or love that I'm saying that. I don't know. I don't like to take hard stances, especially on firearms, because I waffle a lot, when it comes to them. But I have a tough time with open, broad strokes on any type of law, and one way or another, whether it's heavy right or heavy left, there needs to be addressed in a far more better sense than broad strokes.
We don't have to stick on the gun safety thing, but You know, I have a hammer, right? I have a hammer in my toolbox. I know that eventually I'm going to drop that hammer on my foot. You know, I'm gonna hit my thumb or I'm gonna drop it on my foot. Same thing with a gun. You know, the most people get shot with their own guns. If I owned a gun, I would end up
Absolutely.
shooting myself.
It increased the risks
foot.
100%. 1,000%. It increased the risk of it. If you don't have one, you can't shoot yourself with it or shoot anyone else with it.
Right, but did you ever go to hammer training? Or did anybody ever teach you how to properly handle a hammer? And did you have a super deep respect for that hammer to where you're going to treat it like a rattlesnake, you know, where it can bite you if it falls on your foot? But there absolutely is a difference, and it comes to education.
And that, I think that education, like all of education, doesn't get passed around equally to the world, right? So it's like, all right, unless you have a deep respect for it, it's a even more highly dangerous tool.
Right, and that's why I have a problem, like I said before, with just the broad stroke. Hey, anybody and everyone, go right ahead. That I do have a problem with it, especially without any sort of safety restraints in order, or at least they haven't been advertised to the person like myself can know what laws are in place that are going to protect the people.
21-year-old kids all over in Texas are like, yes, we get to like have a gun and it's cool. And that sucks. You know what I mean? Like, that's so irresponsible and so fucking shitty. So it's like, I don't know. It's crazy. That's wild, bro.
Yeah. It's a heated topic.
Anywho.
So let's go back to that's the most innocuous of the new Texas laws.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to like just harp on Texas right now, but you guys suck.
You know, Houston is a very liberal city, and you know, we've had a lesbian mayor, and it's you know, it's got a big gay community.
Yeah, no, I don't mean that. I was just trying to make a bad joke, dude. I'm sorry. I'm not saying you guys suck.
But
I'm just
you know,
Texas as a state is in the news right now. So you know.
Yeah, I don't feel good about being here because of all this nonsense.
Yeah.
You know, it's not neighborly.
Yeah. Which is the draw of like the other side of the country. Like the West Coast, no one talks to each other. If you walk by someone on a sidewalk in California, they look down, they don't say hi, they don't open a door for you sometimes, you know. It's not as there's no hospitality in the sense of like neighborly like values to each other, right? Like no one on the block knows each other. I don't talk to my neighbors. It's if you go anywhere else, I don't even know. I guess like east of California. maybe not, but California in general is just very cold. And you go anywhere else and people are asking how your day is, you're walking down the street, they're walking their dogs, you're making friends, you're having conversations with someone you'll never see again. Is it still happening? Or people talking about this stuff? Like, what's your experience like?
Well, with COVID, I see somebody walking down the street. I basically just cross the street anytime I see anybody.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, you know, I think the South has this idea about being friendly, but it's a smile to your face, stab you in the back kind of friendly. I think.
Okay.
Or in this case, shoot you in the back, right? Now that
nice pullback.
Now that we're in the Wild West, you just draw on somebody if you don't like if they don't smile to you. Or tip their
you guys are gonna weed out the dumb ones really quickly, though, right?
You're gonna have something happen. It's that law. It's gonna switch around. It's gonna get repealed, or I don't even know. Jesus, people are gonna move. It's gonna be a whole like awakening thing. This is very weird of what's going on right now.
Well, you know, I don't mean I hate speculating, especially political, but you know, through the last couple of years, Texas has gotten a lot more blue and has been getting far more liberal in its politics. And it almost seems like the Texas governor right now is almost grasping at straws or throwing Hail Marys to the right to try and make it as far leaning as he can, but before he knows he's going to lose the state to the blue, the blue side. And I guess from a political standpoint, I get it, but that's really fucked up to all of you residents of the biggest state of the union.
Well, they've gerrymandered the congressional districts, so we're basically trapped. That I keep forgetting the name of my congressional representative. Like I moved a few months ago. I'm in a completely different neighborhood. I still have the same congressional representative. Mm-hmm. Because his district snakes street by street. If you look at his congressional district on a map, it's like a spider or something. Like it's not just like, oh, here's the neighborhood, or it's the river on that side and freeway on that side. And
yeah, that happens a lot with those districts. It's wild the way that they're able to kind of pick and choose.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, that's politics.
Yeah, I was gonna say, dude. Didn't we come here to like chat about art or something? Don't you do some stuff?
But that fury is what motivates me.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
yeah. Because voting doesn't do shit, does it?
Doesn't really seem to.
No.
I voted the crap out of things last time, and look where we are now. Yeah, so I make comic books instead. That will fucking fix everything.
Hell yeah.
It's a good fucking comic book.
As long as there's an outlet, then we can deal with all of this shit, right?
And if not, I can get a gun.
There you go. Yeah, hey, you're not
dude.
You're allowed now too. Next time we interview you, I expect a couple of 6-shooters in your hands.
I'm not getting a fucking gun.
Dude, how funny would that be if he was just like Wile E. Coyote next time I saw you? Or Yosemite Sam.
You grow out the mustache.
Yeah, that was sick.
Imagine how much money this podcast is going to be worth. Like, we interviewed that crazy motherfucker.
Oh, Jesus. We don't want that fame, dude. Don't do that.
But get in line. Like, you got to kill a lot of people now to get mass killer famous, right? Like, you can't just kill 30 people now.
It's wild, bro. Yeah, it's war all the time. It is. It's fucking crazy. And the more the population grows, the more that shit's going to happen. Let's talk about it. Pinko Joe, welcome to the podcast again. That was a 17, 18-minute opener. Let's go, baby.
You can just cut all that shit out if you want to.
We're leaving it in if you don't mind. Fuck it.
When there's a political climate like the ones that we're in right now, it does justify a conversation, especially with somebody as politically knowledgeable as yourself and someone with as much passion and care about the laws and the way that things are going around you. So it's definitely warranted.
I just hear channels changing. I could just hear that in the background the more I drone on about politics. But it's all predicted in my book.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about the book because for anyone listening that doesn't know, we had the pleasure of interviewing Chris a month and a half, 2 months ago before my computer got stolen. And we had a really great interview that will never see the light of day. Chris claims he stole it. Maybe I'll get it back. We have there's a whole series of letters with cutout magazine letters taped to them. So I might see it. He's holding it for ransom. We'll see what happens. But can we talk about the book a little bit in the sense of how it got started and where it's come to from Pinko Joe to Greenie Josephini?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've been making comics for a long time. I started making comics in the 90s, and then maybe in 2010, I just kind of stopped for a little bit or didn't do very much. And then in 2014, I just got this idea that for a long time I used whiskey to try to blot out the pain. And then when I quit using whiskey to blot out the pain, I had to do something else to blot out the pain. And so I started working on this graphic novel, and it's fucking helped. I really recommend making graphic novels as a way to
Art is
not
therapy.
drink whiskey anymore.
Art is absolutely therapy, man. You get that outlet.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're halfway joking, but like, was it an issue? Like, did you get sober, or were you just drinking too much whiskey? You're like,
I was trying to drink my way out of Texas, and it wasn't working.
Yeah. Yeah, you're still there.
I thought it was a tunnel. It just wasn't helping. I just got to the point where it wasn't helping, right?
Yeah.
Like the pain was too great, and so I had to do something else. So I started working on this graphic novel idea, and I've been looking at a lot of public domain comics. Actually, I've been looking at public domain comics for a long, long time. This is before your time, but in the 70s, comic books published by Marvel and DC, they were cheapskates, right? So they would publish these big anthology comics, and they would have like a new story, a new Batman story or whatever, the first 8 pages with like a new Batman cover. But then it would also feature all these comics from the past. And so you buy one of these big anthologies and you'd read this new Batman story, but then there'd be a Hawkman story from like 1948 or something, or like the original Green Lantern, you know, whose vulnerability is wood. And so growing up in the 70s was actually a great comics education, because you get these anthologies and you would read comics from the past. Like there was nobody republishing any of this old stuff. And so I've always looked at old comics like as friends rather than just filler, which is, I know what the comic book companies were thinking of it as. Like, oh, well, some cigar smoking editor, like, yeah, just throw that fucking shit in there.
Yeah.
Those kids are idiots anyway.
Yeah, it's colorful, right? They'll like it.
Yeah. Kids love this stuff.
Yeah. So looking at old comics was always kind of my jam. And so I, luckily, when the internet came along, then there were these great sites that started sort of cataloging public domain comics.
Yeah.
And, like stylistically, they may not be as interesting to us today, but they were still, still storytelling, still sort of graphic. And the best artists are just best, like Jack Kirby is the king.
Right.
Still. So I was looking at old public domain comics. That's kind of what inspired me to start working on Pinko Joe.
Do you see that renaissance kind of coming back in the younger artists today, wanting to replicate? Well, not even younger, but like just artists in general. I got like guys I've worked with, and everyone respects Kirby as the king, but just to replicate that style or that time in comics and kind of bring it back from what it's become to that more like simplistic and like stylistic black and white comic. I mean, what's your take on that? Is that
I think the retro stuff is pretty fashionable right now.
but like, do you get my question? Like, is that kind of a catalyst? I mean, your stuff is different than that, but what I'm saying is like you see that kind of style coming back around again. People paying the respect to that era of comics.
Yeah, I think the retro comics is a thing right now. That retro style, the digital tools that are available now, they're fantastic, and and also just sort of knowledge is spreading generally. So I myself, I've written a bunch of tutorials for a company called Retro Supply, and they make great brushes, and it's so easy now to do all that stuff. Even like 5 years ago, you had to really make your own tools to do this stuff.
Yeah. And there's those little techniques and secrets that those guys contributed on paper, but you won't really know quite how they did it. And it's trying to like mimic that exact brush stroke or how they cut their brushes or however, those
Yeah.
little tricks to the trade.
Yeah. Yeah. And, but I think I think there are some great artists today and great comics being made today. It's the industry itself, I think, is sagging, right? Like people don't buy as many comic books as they used to.
Well, you could see it in the inflation that's been going on. It's like everyone has to sell for higher because they're obviously not selling as many. Something's going on. It's not the cost of paper hasn't gone up that much. It's beyond that. So it's crazy. It's like they need to make their bottom line. So you see an influx in the price of comics.
Yeah. Yeah. And, these, with Marvel and DC, they're these big multinational corporations now. They're part of these big multinational corporations,
Right.
and the comics is again, it's just not very well regarded. Comic books again are not treated the way the films are. Like, it infuriates me. I have students now. They've not read Marvel comics, but they consider themselves Marvel fans.
Because of the movies,
Right.
yeah. That's
Damn.
yeah.
That never even crossed my mind. That's so funny. I guess like with my younger siblings and cousins, or not siblings, but cousins, I can see that. But yeah, as like an adult to be like, yeah, I'm really into Marvel and just be into the movies.
That does speak though to the talent and writing that it takes to make a good comic book, because those movies have grossed billions of dollars, or up to $1 billion probably by now, and they're all based off of these stories and writing that came out of comic books.
Right. And that was looked at as like a low grade or like lesser than art form and literature form. Comics weren't really a good thing. Like if you were reading comics, it was almost like you were poor and you couldn't read books or something. It was different, the further back you look in time. Seriously, I'm not fucking with you. Like that, bro.
Interesting.
Well, I'm a comic book artist. I'm an artist, and the institution that I teach at, I'm a professor, and I'm constantly being challenged on what I do. Like the validity of what I do. The U.S. entertainment industry is 7 times larger than the U.S. oil and gas industry.
7 times. Wow.
7 times.
Fucking wild.
And so, kiss my ass, oil and gas industry, kiss my ass. Now, granted, about half of the entertainment industry is video games now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not Hollywood anymore.
Yeah. Is that include? I'm sure that includes like apps and like screen, anything that has to do with the screen at this point. There's multi-million, if not billion-dollar, internet apps, which gets thrown into the pot. But it's pretty wild. And to say that like Hollywood's hurting, it's like, get the fuck out of here. Like, shut up. You guys.
Yeah.
Crazy. They release these movies. It's like, oh, they only released 6 movies in the year of the pandemic, right? Like there was no movies being released. They had 3 dozen movies that could have been released in that time frame, that they're like, we're gonna wait to make money off this. Like they're not hurting. Get out of here. Crazy.
So would you consider yourself able to focus a little bit more on the writing side of all the stories that go into your books, because you kind of have that set style, or that you're drawing from these classic styles? You're able to kind of focus on the story?
Yeah, I mean, the Pinko Joe, and I'll just hold it up again.
Yeah, we both go both sides, baby.
There it is. This book, I started it on page 1 and I finished it on page 96. And page 96 is when I kind of figured it out. Right?
Okay.
I just started. And I give my students shit for that kind of behavior. Like that's why would you do that? But by page 96, I had realized that I needed to do 2 more volumes to get myself out of the corner that I painted myself into.
Uh-huh.
And then then I started really focusing on the writing. Like I really had to be a better writer and think about the plot such as it is, just to get the fuck out of, out of where I was.
Right. It was more of an escape route at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's brought to you by the same guy who tried to drink his way out of Texas. Like that's stupid.
That's the name of the third book. Yeah. Drink My Way Out of Texas. That might be just a fine title.
Yeah. So yeah, and then by the time the second book came around, and I'll just hold that one up, Greenie Josephini. In the first book, like those vintage comics, it's hard to find strong female protagonists. So for the second book, I really had to look harder at. I looked at vintage women in prison comics, and also some jungle comics.
Yeah.
And although those jungle comics are so racist,
they might wild, dude.
Imagine
Rima in the Jungle, Rima the Jungle Girl. I forget the title of it, but yeah, there's a lot of them that are a lot of, especially I guess satirical. Maybe not satirical is the right word, but something that's trying to be satirical or a joke. It doesn't always age well.
That's
true for comedians and movies and comics and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I try to balance when I'm teaching comics. I really try to balance my teaching with also there's just a lot of terrible racism by some artists who I really like their work, but I can't really advocate it or promote it in class.
Right.
And say well, that was a different time. Like, really,
So put something new out that's not racist, because we can't put this out.
Or they're gone. It's like that was just a product of its time, and you can respect the artwork but not have to agree with it. Yeah. It's like it's anything. It's it's seeing a painting in a museum that is just wildly maybe offensive on first glance, but maybe it's deeper than that. Maybe it was meant to be something different. But it's going to speak for face value in the time that it sits in and you view it.
So as you're having to sift through, I'm sorry, I didn't hear a question in there, so I'm just going to hop in. In the time that it takes to like sift through these old comics and take, choose, for lack of a better term, something not too racist to be able to draw from. Take us through that process, because I'm sure this is kind of something that a lot of people haven't really thought about as comic had to. Yeah. Like if you're using these older comics, I wish I had a better adjective, but these other comics, what is that process like, having to choose, okay, here's what I want. Do you have the story first, or do you write the story based on what you find and all that?
Well, so I, after learning the lesson of not, you've got to have a map where you're going, I knew where I wanted to land. And this is actually, this is how Ernie Bushmiller worked. I don't know if you're a fan of Nancy Comics from he died in the 80s, but the Nancy strip ran for like 40 years or something. It's actually still running.
It's in a bootleg culture. I mean, it's stronger than ever. It's crazy.
Yeah. So Bushmiller would always write the last panel first. So he knew where he wanted the joke to land.
Yes.
And then he went back to the beginning, and he knew what kind of running start he needed to make to get onto that spot.
It's a really
great writing advice. Like you figure out where you want to end up, and then you work backwards, right? Because it's all a magic trick. Like writing and drawing, like it's something that I practice on a daily basis. And to somebody that doesn't practice writing and drawing on a daily basis, what I do may seem amazing, or like, how do you do that? And it's just practice.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, Bushmiller's technique of writing the end first, like that really saved my bacon.
I have to step in and call me ignorant or whatever you want to, but I think there is a certain amount of talent that you're not giving yourself credit for there. You might practice and try really hard, but there's also some God-given talent that goes along with being able to create the way that you do and be able to put it together like you have.
hell yeah.
It really is just practice. Like I think I mean, because I couldn't teach it. If it was I can't be a hypocrite in that regard, right? Like I can't be a college professor and then say, "Oh, well, you've got to be born with it."
Okay, I see where you're going. All right, my bad. I retract. You're absolutely right. I retract that all the way back. It's all about practice. Go to school, figure it out, and you can be as good of an artist as anybody.
It's crazy. Yeah. Did you watch the Bob Ross documentary on Netflix that just came out?
I haven't, not yet. I love Bob Ross, and I've heard it's kind of a heartbreaker.
It's a bummer, and
I'm delicate right now.
but like nothing on him. It's a really sweet movie, and I was happy to like see the footage and everything put together in the way it was. But just to think of that, like the reason that guy could mix paint and paint the way he could in 25 minutes and create a piece, uh, he didn't start off doing that. It's practice. It's the repetition. It's the 10,000 hours. It's whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It takes that time. It's like, how old were you before you got comfortable publishing stuff or like putting work out for yourself?
I'm 57 now, so 58, I'd say. Yeah, I'm not super comfortable with it, right? Like I don't want to be, I just want people to like my work. I don't want I don't need to be the king of something.
Well, you make it pretty easy to like the work. I thumbed through it, and I've been exposed to comics doing Rat Nest more than I ever have in my life. I grew up I was kind of a baseball card kid rather than a comic book kid. And now I've been exposed to comics left and right all over the place. And I love it, dude. Being able to sit down with different styles in my face, not have to really imagine. I can, read it and see what I'm supposed to be seeing. That it's great. It's a very fun thing to be exposed to this late in life,
And you're 20 what now?
Yeah, I wish. No, I'm getting up there, bro. 36 this month.
I wish I was 36.
Tell me what I should be doing, because if I could be doing as well as you are at 56, I think it'd be good.
It's stuff I can't say on live air, but
okay. We'll talk about it off screen.
Yeah. Send me one of those clipped out magazine letters you've been sending.
Yeah, for the ransom for the computer.
We're pulling it all the way back.
All the way back to the beginning. Look at us writing.
Let me plug this. I don't know. Do you guys know Shush?
No, I just saw that at the Eastern European Publishing Company.
They're based in Riga, Latvia.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so this is the company, or the publisher is called Kush Comics, and this anthology is called Shh.
Okay.
And it's actually been nominated. It was nominated in 2017 for an Eisner, and it was nominated in 2020 for an Eisner.
Oh yeah,
very
as an anthology. Of course, I was in the ones before 2017 and the ones in 2018 and this one. So I wasn't in any of the Eisner nominations.
Oh no.
Yeah. Which I think they did on purpose. I mean, that's what you get for living alone. I'm incredibly paranoid and angry. So, but actually, I've got a piece in this issue.
Awesome.
Hell yeah.
And like it's but you were talking about like all sorts of different kinds of comics. There's just really great, very kind of bold,
Oh, very
experimental comics in these anthologies.
Lots of different styles in there.
Lots of different stuff. And you know, it's just such a joy to see all this stuff. And Riga, who knew?
Say again, I'm sorry, I missed that.
I said Riga. Riga, Latvia is where they're located.
Oh, the place.
Yeah.
See, I've never even heard of it, so I didn't even associate it as a place.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a town name. I knew it was Latvia, but Riga, Latvia. That's
Riga, Latvia.
crazy.
That's really cool.
Crazy.
That is
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was familiar. I like some of the old school zines that I remember. Like now I'm losing it. Slingshot out of like the Pacific Northwest, and like those little books, like those year-long calendar books. It was so fun to flip through, and like it felt good in your hands. It's like smaller than a normal book. It just has a different feel than like a normal comic. Plus they're fat. They're like a couple hundred pages usually, like that.
Yeah.
So I was when I saw that you just posted a day or two ago, I really wanted to get my hands. Is there a place where we can order them in the US? Do they have US distribution?
The U.S. is tough. You might find them like at Quimby's in Chicago.
Yeah.
You know, Quimby's is the place. Have you ever been to Quimby's?
No, but I'm familiar with it.
Next time you go to Chicago, you got to go to Quimby's because it's filled with that zine type stuff. Like there's shelves filled with these independent handmade books, as well as like the mainstream stuff, of course. But lots of really wild, crazy magazines. Like I got a copy of Sploosh there. Have you ever seen Sploosh?
No.
Fill me in on Sploosh.
Oh my God. Talk about weird magazines.
Yes, I'm in.
It's mostly women, none of them naked, all in like bikinis or dresses. And they're dumping either like pots of macaroni, like mac and cheese, or baked beans on themselves.
This is a photography? Is photography or illustration?
Full color photography magazine.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Look
I'm into
that
Sploosh,
up.
dude.
Yeah,
I think I
up.
just got into Sploosh.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not my thing.
No,
right?
but it's so interesting. That's so funny.
But magazines like Sploosh are my thing. Does that make sense? Like I'm not buying Sploosh because of what's inside. I'm buying Sploosh because of what it is.
Right. It's like out there-ness, like it's appeal that there's who is into this. It's interesting to think of the people that regularly subscribe to Sploosh.
I want to know how much thought goes into the preparation of the meal. Like, did they actually put spices in the mac and cheese? Were they like doing it to eat and then someone came and stole it and dumped it on their girlfriend? How is this happening?
When we get off here, just Google Sploosh magazine and I'm sure it'll have all your answers.
I don't know if I'm ready.
You're broadening so many eyes right now.
I was joking when I said I was into Sploosh. Now I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But again, it's not pornographic.
Right.
Well, that's good.
You know, it's just I think a waste of beans.
Yeah, totally.
Like a big waste of beans. A lot of beans. Like one of those industrial sized cans of beans.
That's sick. Do you know what neighborhood, or is Quimby's downtown in Chicago? Where's it at?
Quimby's is in Wicker Park area.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm very familiar with that area.
I used to live around the corner from there.
Yeah, sick.
North and Damon.
I was always stay off of Northwestern by the Empty Bottle.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Not too far.
We're gonna have to do a rat nest.
You can also get from the publisher directly from Kush.
Sick.
How did you get involved with a publisher in Latvia and be able to get in the first few or the issues before and after?
Well, in 2000, what was it? 2017 or 2018, um, I did a I did a bunch of artist residencies one summer, and I went to an artist residency in Finland, and it was a comic book artist residency. And so I spent a month in sort of like the Finnish forest,
Okay.
fairyland,
That's
with
awesome.
with like a dozen other comic book artists from all over the world: Iran, Australia, Canada, South Africa. And all these folks knew all this different stuff about comics that I had no idea about. And one of them was, hey, do you know this Latvian comic book publisher? I was like, no, but must know now. Yeah. And they run open calls. So, you know, if your listeners are aspiring comics people, you know, follow them on Instagram. And when there's an open call, submit something.
There you go. It's called Kush Comics, right? Kush.
KU with that little smiley face over. Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't exist in English, but exists in seemingly every other language.
If you're not sure, message Ratnest Podcast or Pinko_Joe, and we'll tell you. Yeah, dude. So, all right. Beyond that, you've worked with other publishers. You've stayed around the world besides that little camp, right? You lived in Berlin for a while. Is like where, like, why not just like pack up and move? Or are you so invested like in the US? Like I would be out, dude, if I had ties like anywhere else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what I need is an Italian wife or a French wife or a German wife.
Yeah.
Or a Finnish wife. And so if any of your listeners, you know, like this does it for you, you know, shoot me a message, because I really would like to get airlifted out of Texas.
Sweet.
That's why you can't leave, is because you're loving Texas so much right now. You just can't stand the thought of leaving.
I do love teaching, and I love what I do at Rice.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Segue.
Yeah, can we actually? We'll segue there. Can we talk about this?
Let's let him segue first, and then we'll segue after.
Yeah,
we held up two different books, but they're the two I also brought. Let's talk about that and how you get work done through Rice.
Yeah, so the Comic Art Teaching and Study Workshop is a space that I made at Rice University to teach comics, and also to help people research comics if they want to. And I've developed a bunch of exhibitions out of the stuff that I've collected there. And yeah, it's just you know, I'm a big admirer of the Billy Ireland Museum at Ohio State. And I'm so jealous of everybody that gets to be at Ohio State and be around that collection. They have something like 3 million, although I've heard 9 million as a number as well. So they have a lot of original comic art, books on comics, comic books, clippings, newspaper comic clippings, which is crazy. They have a dedicated exhibition space. I think they have most of Bill Watterson's original art.
That's insane. Is that the biggest collection of Bill Watterson's like work, or is that? I know there's only a couple places they even have their hands on it.
Yeah, I think that I don't know what you know what the that situation is, but they've got a lot of them. They've got great ones.
Oh yeah.
Calvin and Hobbes, and it's a really nice museum space. And then they also have a great research space as well. So, you know, if you want to go in and you're a comics professional, or you know you write about comics or you podcast about comics, you can look at their collection online and then schedule a time to go in and look at it, and they will bring the stuff to you.
Oh, very cool.
So, you know, like I got to hold Little Nemo in Slumberland. You know, original drawing from Little Nemo in Slumberland.
That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. They've got Charles Schultz originals. Yeah, so I think it's really worth a trip to
I was
Columbus.
gonna say it's worth the trip to a state I didn't think I would ever go take a trip to.
Now there's a reason.
Sweet.
Yeah. They and then also they in Columbus they do that cartoon Crossroads Columbus, which is a fair that they do every year. And they bring artists in and they give artists awards and they have tabling one day.
Oh, crazy! I haven't heard of that. That's wild.
Yeah, and so being in Houston, I'm not in Columbus, and so I just started my own little sort of collection of stuff.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I started collecting was original comic art from Mexico.
Oh, very cool.
And this is a book. It's called Fundamental Camarena, and it's about an artist named Julio Camarena, who was active in the 60s and 70s
Okay.
and had really amazing work.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, look at that.
The one of the best that I've ever seen come. You know, I'm not really familiar with that era like you are, but going through that book, I was just like, Jesus Christ, beautiful work.
Beautiful work. He could have worked for Marvel. He could work for DC. You know, this format
Yeah.
was imposed by the comic book company. So this is
okay.
actually the original size of the drawings. This is how big the drawings are.
Jeez.
And then the comic books themselves were these tiny little things. This is the original size of the comic book.
Oh wow.
So these comic books are, you know, like
Palm size.
palm sized, 96 pages.
Wow.
And they would publish tens of millions every month. So the
Wow.
comic book scene in Mexico City, I would say, would rival the comic book scene of like Japan.
Yeah, but I don't know what has a worse track record of archiving that. Do you know if there's a lot of that stuff? I feel like in Mexico it'd probably just be destroyed throughout the years. Not a lot of it would have lasted.
Yeah, I mean, sometime in the 70s, there was this kind of switch, and I think it had to do with politics and social upheaval, and yeah, like this Mexican comic book history is kind of forgotten or ignored at the very least. And so it's like if somebody just pulled the switch on manga.
Right.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like it stopped being like they stopped making it and people stopped talking about it or thinking about it.
It's taking it out before it hits the communal conscious of like the popular culture. Um and it takes away overall culture from that art scene in that country, right? So it's interesting to see that because, like I said, I had never been exposed to like the idea of a Mexican comic book artist working the way of like a Kirby or something like those illustrations are. It's, I mean, that era that I had no idea existed there.
So are you familiar with Gwen Stacy and Spider-Man?
Yeah, I don't know too much history on it, but yes.
So Gwen Stacy was Peter Parker's first girlfriend, and she was thrown off the top of the Brooklyn Bridge by the Green Goblin.
Right.
Right.
Spider-Man shoots a web down to catch her, and her neck snaps.
Oh.
And she dies. And in U.S. comics, like it was the first sort of like murder of a main character in a mainstream comic book, and it created huge fan outrage here. It created such fan outrage in Mexico that the Mexican publisher that published Spider-Man asked permission to start writing their own Spider-Man stories with Gwen Stacy still alive.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Sorry.
No,
just the Mexican comic scene was huge.
I was just thinking back just because I was more familiar with like the Amazing Spider-Man reboot cartoon in the early 90s when I was younger. And Gwen Stacy dies through being thrown from the Green Goblin, but I don't know if that's the same narrative that played out because when you said that, I was like, damn, did it happen like that? Because I remember that's his whole thing is uh, the remorse for that one. But it's interesting to see that the whole country would be like, can we change the narrative and do our own thing because that is just too heavy,
Yeah.
you know?
I think it really speaks to the passion that comic book fans really have. Some things, sports and all that, have certain amount of fanatics in them, but I think in the comic book realm, I have seen more die hard, like I live this life more than really any other scene that exists. Maybe punk rock is another one that where
Yeah.
people live the scene that they're a part of, but comic people are die hard, man. And so it makes sense. They have been following this story, and their main character or the love of the main character dies. They're going to be pissed and say, you know what? All of us are mad. Let's make them rewrite
But
it.
is that true for like throughout the generations? Is that a 2000s thing? It's like subcultures.
Well, it's absolutely that way right now. Everyone that we've talked to has been so passionate, and like you can just tell. I mean, even talking to you, Chris, you just exude comic book knowledge and love for it. You know what I mean? You can just tell that you've really imprinted it on your life.
Sad. It's sad, really.
I love it, dude. Like I said, coming from not being in the comic book scene and seeing it as like a community from the outside, it's fucking beautiful.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I wish I had the same passion for like eating organic food and exercising.
Yeah, all of us, right? I wish I could do that with pedal biking.
Or investing in the stock market. Like, why don't I have that same fucking enthusiasm for that?
Yeah, dude. I think about that sometimes. I'm like, I could be a lot smarter with my money if I really cared about it. It's a give and take. I'm a happy guy. And I'm sure you are too, even though we get pissed off sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, making comics it's brings me a lot of joy. I think.
Hell yeah.
It's great to be able to take that awful news and channel it somewhere. Even though I think it, I get death threats, which I think are hilarious. But I also get a lot of fans saying like, "Oh, seeing your stuff really gets me through my day." Or, I look forward to your posts on Instagram.
Well, and that's
that makes. I don't know. That's weird. It's a little weird for me. I don't want that responsibility.
No, that has to be so vindicating, man. Knowing that you're doing something that brings you joy and it's bringing other people joy, just kind of because you're doing what brings you joy. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
you don't have to
beauty of reciprocation.
Yeah, you don't got to go too far into it. It's like it brings them joy. Fucking, that's what's up. Ask final questions, I guess. Can I get some copies off you? I'll pay you for them that we can sell on the website, just like a few of each book, or do you do that, or are you just self publishing and self?
So the publisher is Argle Bargle Books. They're based in Montreal,
Canada.
If you send me an email, I'm happy to send you some books. I got stacks of them here.
Okay.
Stan Waney is the publisher. He's also a terrific artist. He's on Instagram. And he's got a book coming out with Conundrum Press. I think it's out now or soon or something.
One more time is Stan
Waney, Wany.
There you go.
And he's on Instagram. He's a terrific comic artist in his own right. But he's also got this passion for publishing. Actually, he's one of the people that I met on this Finnish comic book artist residency.
Oh, right.
And so that,
that's wild.
Yeah. He just published a book by an artist named Jonathan McBurney, who's Australian, who was also on this residency. And McBurney's work is amazing. And people talk about like, oh, you're so prolific. How do you make these comics every day? Go and look at Jonathan McBurney's work, man. That guy is fucking machine.
Yeah.
Like, he turns out comics like Jesus, dude, take a day off. You're making the rest of us look bad.
It's great to have those guys that are doing it like that, though, because
keeps the scene alive.
If we all slowed down, there wouldn't be as much to look at, right? So,
yeah, and they all do it out of a passion, right? Like it's not some sort of paycheck.
No,
to
absolutely.
either Dan or Jonathan, which, capitalism, like, comics were born out of capitalism, right? They were, capitalism is the home of comic books. The Yellow Kid
Yeah, yeah.
drove circulation for Hearst newspapers, and comic books themselves were just repackaged Sunday funnies,
Mm-hmm.
and sold back to the consumer. Like, you probably already seen these, but here you are for a nickel. You can see them again. So I can't shit all over capitalism, but the artists that I know, they're not motivated by money. They're motivated by they just want to do it.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
that passion is admirable, absolutely, and it shines through you, dude. You absolutely show it off, and it shows in your work as well. And if you have all of you listening, if you have any desire to try and start making comics, please go check out the books. This guy is a legit professor. He's accredited. He knows everything. He's the one that you want to talk to when it comes to learning how to make comics.
That's right.
It's true.
It's true. I know that sounded very sarcastic, but it's true. Give us where they can get in touch with you and check out your work and all of that again.
Yeah, so Instagram's the easiest way. It's I'm there. I'm there all the time, sort of doom scrolling on Instagram, and it's at Pinko_Joe. And if you want to send death threats, that's okay. Those make me happy, frankly. It legitimizes me. So the more sort of nasty comments and sincere death threats you want to make, that's fine. And then from there, you can bounce forward to find my books on Argle Bargle, and that's okay. Follows are great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Check them out and go buy the books. Go to Argle Bargle. It's an awesome word to say. If you haven't yet, say it out loud. It's kind of fun to say.
It is fun to say.
Argle Bargle.
Yeah, dude. We'll post when this comes out. Should just be a week or two. And thank you again for doing this. I'm so sorry the first one got scrapped. Appreciate you coming on and bullshitting with us again.
Absolutely. Yeah, my pleasure. Anytime.
This was good, and thanks for being just open and honest with us. That was a great first 15 that we had going on there. I liked it.
I thought I was gonna have to fight the computer with Jim. I don't know what is happening. What's going on?
No, absolutely.
Break it up,
not.
guys.
I like when conversations are able to be had about politics nowadays rather than a debate. There's no reason to try and convince each other of anything. It's just a conversation.
Yeah, I grew up in Appalachia. My father took me hunting. I should not have a gun. Like, I'm just one of those people. Like, not like I'm gonna shoot anybody on purpose, but accidentally. Fuck yes, I'm gonna shoot somebody accidentally. I'm gonna Dick Cheney somebody.
Yeah.
Just let's just not ever let that happen.
And the truth is, as a gun owner, thank you for being self-aware enough to recognize that and not owning firearms. That is good. That's good for all of us. It keeps you safe. and dot.
And okay.
Right,
awesome, dude.
Thanks again for doing this.
Thank you so much, man. It's been a blast.
Anything else we can do for you, let us know. We got you.
Okay. All right.
Take care.
Cool.
All right. Take care,
Thanks,
man.
Yeah. Bye.
This has been the Rat Nest Podcast, episode 23 with Pinko Joe. You can check out more of the Rat Nest Podcast on YouTube every week and any major streaming platform. You can go ratneststickerco.com to buy prints, books, comics, stickers, and more. Jim?
I'm Jim. Bye.